the Town Fair Tire Studios, home of the Celtics, Bruins, Revs, and Patriots.
Touchdown, Patriots!
Boston's home for sports is 98.5, the Sports Hub, East Lake Media Group Station. Sports Hub headlines.
The Boston Celtics got back in the win column yesterday with a 104-92 win over the Pelicans in New Orleans. Jason Tatum led the Celtics with 23 points, while Kristaps Porzingis added a double-double, 19 points, 10 rebounds. An early lead for the Bruins ended up going to a shootout last night with the Washington Capitals. Bees ended up losing 3-2. Johnny Beecher and Hampus Lindholm scored for the Bruins in the loss. The Red Sox also went long last night. They played 10 innings out in Seattle. The Sox scored twice in the top of the 10th, but then gave up 3 runs in the bottom half of that inning for a 4-3 loss. The Sox and Mariners wrap up their season opening series today. First pitch set for 4 o'clock. In March Madness action on the men's side, 2 Elite Eight games last night. That included number 1 UConn knocking off 3rd seed Illinois 77-52, and 4th seed Alabama beating 6th seed Clemson 89-82. 2 more games today. The top seed Purdue taking on 2nd seed Tennessee, and 4th seed Duke taking on NC State. On the women's side, Caitlin Clark is moving on. Iowa beat Colorado 89-68 yesterday, and LSU is moving on. Angel Reese 78-69 over UCLA. 2 more games today in the women's bracket. South Carolina takes on Oregon State, and top seed Texas takes on NC State. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Alex Barth on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 9 o'clock.
Marchand back of the net. He'll shoot, he scores! Brad Marchand!
Every Bruins game on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle.
We hit, we win. We put pressure, we win. We penetrate, we win.
Getting you ready for a long day of football coverage. The Pats, league news, betting lines, and game on. Sunday Kickoff on 98.5 The Sports Hub has it covered. Here are Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle.
Good morning. Happy Easter. Welcome into the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff on Sunday, March 31st. Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle with you. Ryan Beaton behind the glass. A lot to get to today, guys. A lot to get to. Busy week. Might have been, at least for me, writing-wise, the busiest week of the offseason. I think I was more, up to my neck and stuff to write than I was during free agency week. But first off, happy Easter to you guys.
Happy Easter, man.
But yeah, so we had, just to recap the week, because if you remember, because it was a long week, the week started with the owners' meetings. That was all this week. Gerard Mayo, his comments, Robert Kraft, his comments. But we're actually going to work our way backwards because our attention went, and some people literally flew from the owners' meetings to the big quarterback pro days this week. So Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy went last week. We talked about them.
Mm-hmm.
This week you had the rest of that top group. You had Jaden Daniels on Wednesday, Drake May and Michael Penix on Thursday. And I want to start with Drake May, Cerrone, because this show, Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, had boots on the ground. You were there. You got to witness the throwing session in person. Good job getting down there last minute. Tell us what you saw.
Man, it was, first of all, it was my first time ever going to a pro day, so it was pretty cool. Pretty chill, relax. I got to shake hands with the new head coach, Gerard Mayo, and Matt Elliott Wolf as well. That was pretty cool. I didn't even realize that was the rest of the Patriot staff was just standing there. It's weird when you see people, pictures, TV, whatever, and when they're standing right next to you, you kind of don't recognize them. But until later, I'm like, oh, that's so-and-so. But first of all, it was a cool experience, but, I was really hard on Drake May. I've been hard on him since the season. And I'm like, what do people see in him? I don't get where they see this franchise-changing quarterback. I just go by the games. I'm looking at the games, looking at some mistakes here. I see inconsistencies, whatever. And then I'm sitting there watching him throw it 65, 70 times. And by about throw 48, I said, oh, I get it. I get it. And when you see it in person, you see it up close, And as we sat here last year and was saying, Mac Jones doesn't have the arm strength. The ball doesn't have any zip on it. It looks like he's just lofting it or whatever. And to see this in person, and you can hear the ball whistling into receivers' hands 30, 40, 50, 60 yards downfield, the simulated pass rush, something they didn't do with Jaden Daniels during his pro day. Guys running at him with both hands up, getting him off balance a little bit, and he's still off his back foot, dropping it over the shoulder on guys. And I left saying, I see why people are, intrigued. I see why they think he has NFL star physical talents. You can see it there. It's obvious. He's a big dude, big kid. And you can see how easy and effortless it was for him to throw the ball on the move, left, rolling out right. The short stuff was impressive because he was hitting guys in stride and never had to reach back, reach up, reach down. It was pretty smooth, and I left saying I get it. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Fame All-Pro every year he's in the league, but I do understand why NFL scouts, GMs would absolutely take this kid in the top 5. And I would add, I was standing near some scouts from there was the Jets and Niners, and they're not in position to draft this kid unless they move up. They were fist bumping everybody after a bunch of those throws and oohing and ahhing right next to me. And these weren't fans. These were NFL, employees. And they loved what they saw. Mayo and Elliott Wolf absolutely was intrigued. And Van Pelt as well, he started moving up, getting a closer look. Both of them did. And I think they were impressed by what they saw, just like everybody else was.
Yeah, so I think of all the parts of the pre-draft process, the pro day is maybe, I don't want to say the most overrated, but we talked about this last week, right? It's an ideal scenario. It's comfortable. You're in your building, shorts and a t-shirt. I do like that Drake May did the simulated pass rush. I don't think I've seen that before. So not saying that's the be all end all, but good on him for that one. But it's a very comfortable situation. I don't think there's as much to glean from it. And as we said last week, I think you can hurt your stock at a pro day. I don't know how much you can help it. But the one thing that I can't touch on, but you were there, and I'm talking to other people who were there, because you just don't necessarily see this on TV, the way the ball comes out of his hand, the way it zips through the air, all of that. And some of the throws did look impressive on TV, but I think the stuff that you said, that's why the teams travel all over the country to get this stuff, because there's certain things you have to see a guy throw in person to truly evaluate. And obviously Jane Daniels, Drake May didn't throw at the combine. So this was the only chance to see it. So I know some people came away. It was weird. There was that one throw, and he did miss. It was 2 throws that he missed pretty bad on the outside. And one of them, somebody put it right on Twitter, and everybody reacted like Drake May was having a bad pro day. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he had the best pro day ever. Like, he didn't. He missed a couple throws.
He missed some throws. He did.
But
I want to say about 6 throws, 6 or 7 that he missed, and they were all the sideline outs, deep outs.
Right. I think he more or less did what he had to do. I think he more or less took care of business, handled what he needed to handle. You'd like to see him hit some more of those throws, but he was good enough. And I think the in-person part of it, just again, talking to people who were down there, I think that checked all the boxes. So that all being said, neither one of us got to see Jane Daniels in person. I did talk to some people who did get to see him in person. They said that it was, again, what you wanted to see. He did miss a few throws as well, but the big thing I heard from people who were there were the mechanics are just very clean. The way he throws the football, it's consistent, it's repeatable, it's a quick release, all of that. He throws the ball the way you want a quarterback to throw the ball. There's not going to be much in terms of his throwing motion that when he gets the NFL, coaches are going to have to do. He's going to kind of get there and be ready in that regard.
Yeah, and then in the same day after the Drake May one, of course, she had Penix, I think, later that night. And he runs a 4.5
4. Didn't he run like a 4? Let's find it here. It was. I've said this.
I wasn't expecting it.
So I've said this about Michael Penix for a while. He ran a 4.56.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, 4.46.
Yes, it was something crazy.
There's this whole narrative that Michael Penix is immobile. That's not true. It's not that he can't run. He
moves the
doesn't.
pass.
Right. He wants to throw, and I think he's also trying to protect his knees because he's had those knee injuries. But if you go back and watch him in Indiana, he was running all over the place. He was a scrambler, and I think it's a testament to how much his game has grown. When he wants to run, he can run. He just more often than not, I think, chooses not to do it out of I think it's self-preservation. And maybe he'll run more in the NFL. I don't know, but you had that, the way he threw the football based on the way people were talking about it coming out. I think his pro day showed what I've kind of been saying for months, that, hey, this guy's one of the top quarterbacks in this draft. This guy's a first-round pick. You can be concerned about his injury history. That's totally fair.
That's it, yeah.
And you got to factor that in his age. But when it comes to throwing the football,
he's elite.
Right. So I'm glad he got a chance to showcase it, even if it was kind of tucked behind Drake May's pro day.
Yeah. And the biggest thing I came away from it, though, Alex, was by the end of the day, by the end of that night, I'm sitting there, and my first thought was, if I'm the Patriots, I'm not moving anywhere. I'm taking my quarterback. I'm not risking it. I mean, people say people down on first-round picks. Oh, they fail a lot. They end up a lot being busts. But every now and then, every decade or so, you get a draft or a couple years where you just see a group of quarterbacks that reset the league. It happens every, like I said, 10, 15 years or so. And what if this is one of those drafts where all four of these guys end up being good players? It just could be one of those situations. And there was a lot of people at Drake May's. A lot of teams were there. You drop back, let's say, to 11. Who's to say that somebody leapfrogs all these teams and gets ahead of you and take those quarterbacks are off the board? I'm not willing to risk that. And I don't care if it's May, Daniels, or Penix, so Williams is gone. But I think you have to come away with one of those guys, and I think you got to do it early if somebody's going to snatch one of these players up.
I think you're exactly right. And whether that's Drake May, Jaden Daniels at 3, whether that's I don't think he should go this high, but he's probably going to. J.J. McCarthy at 6. All the people who think they have this creative mock draft where they either trade down or they take Marvin Harrison at 3 and then they take Michael Penix at 34. Michael Penix ain't getting 34. I've been trying to tell you guys. The league's screwed up if Michael Penix gets at 34. And now, I guess to be fair, it wouldn't be the first time the league has made a mistake on a quarterback.
Yeah.
But generally the mistake is overdrafting. They don't generally leave the good ones on the board. They'll take the bad ones early, right?
Yeah.
But this quarterback class to this point continues to deliver in delivering at the combine, delivering at the pro day. I know, who cares?
Yeah.
But the reality is this is all the information we have leading up to the draft. And we can't judge him on you can't draft him based on how many Super Bowls he's won, because none of them have won any.
None of them, right. And you can't, I see people were getting on me for saying, oh, you can't stop judging these guys by college stats. What else am I going to go by? It's the last place they've played. They haven't played in the NFL yet. So we got to compare what they've done in college versus, equal competition or whatever you want to call it. Like Penix and Caleb Williams both played in the same conference. We can go by what they did against equal competition, whatever. But all we can go by is what they've done in college, what they've done in the combine, what they've done at pro days. That's all we can really judge these guys on. And real quick, I'm looking at the draft order.
Yeah.
Do you think the Giants will pass on a quarterback?
No.
Tennessee, I don't think Tennessee is set with quarterback either. Atlanta got Kirk Cousins, but, would they take a young guy and sit behind him? Yes.
So I look at it. You have the Giants at 6. The Titans might be a quarterback team. Maybe. They've talked a lot about Will Levis this offseason. I don't like Will Levis. They seem to be very into Will Levis. Where I look at it, Cerrone, 10, you have the Jets, and yes, the Jets are a quarterback team because Rodgers ain't staying that long.
No.
Jets, this is starting from 10. Jets, Vikings, Broncos, Raiders, Saints, Colts, Seahawks. Outside of the Colts, right, who are 50, and then you can even keep going. You got the Rams down there at 19. You got the Steelers down there at 20. That's a whole 10 to 15 and then 10 to 16 and then a handful of other teams in that 10 to 20 range. That's the sweet spot. Those are the teams that are trading up, and if they don't trade up, the quarterbacks are all going in that range. I think you could see 5 quarterbacks go in the top 20 this year. I really think that. So if you think you're going to trade down, and I've harped on this a lot, 5 times in the last 30 years, a team has traded down in the first round to take a quarterback. From the top 5, once. It happened last in 1995. And the team that moved down and took, and I'm now blanking on the quarterback. I can tell you they did pass on Steve McNair. And the quarterback is, I don't know why I'm having trouble with this here, because I wrote this. I did all this research. So the quarterbacks traded down for in the first round: E.J. Manuel in 2013, Rex Grossman in 2003, Patrick Ramsey in 2002, Cade McCown in 1999. It was Kerry Collins in 1995, and they passed on Steve McNair. And when the Bears traded down in 99 for Cade McCown, they passed on Dante Culpepper. It is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous game when you trade down for a quarterback. So, and
no way.
And look, I get it's a bad list of players. That's not even the point I was trying to make. That's kind of, I think, how a lot of people took it, but it doesn't happen.
It's risky.
After all these years of, can Bill just be normal at the draft? Now everybody wants them to do the most abnormal thing. So I think they should take quarterback at 3. You're saying go up, get your guy, take the quarterback at 3, take your guy.
Yeah.
Who is your guy, though, as we seemingly do every week as we get new information? We have to reset this question. We'll do it next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff. Cerrone Battler here. Talking football every Sunday morning with the insiders and with you. It's Sunday Kickoff on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Couple misfires early, but he does look the part. He looks the part. Big kid.
Yes.
Footwork. I didn't have a problem with the footwork. I thought McCarthy's footwork was better. I think he had a better pro day than Jaden Daniels did, keeping the times.
Drake May did.
Drake May did. Yes.
Okay, just to keep that straight.
I think he did. I think he came on well at the end. And from all reports and to talking to some of the people that were there, he looked really good.
Zoe has little forgiveness
For
those who miss throws in a pro day.
It's so. Do you understand how scripted the pro day? Like, do you know how many times he's gone over this because you have your personal throwing coach? That's probably not even your offensive coordinator from college. You've already hired a guy because this is what you do now. You have your team of guys, and we're going to go through it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start on hitches. Then we're going to go slant. We're going to get you going early. Then we're going to show that we can move your feet. Little slide out of the pocket. We're going to put you behind the tackle. Then we're going to throw that deep crosser to show off your arm strength. It is so effing scripted.
That was Zoe this week on the pro days. And look, I agree with him big picture that this is as comfortable as it gets at the pro days. I'm maybe a little more forgiving than him. I've seen certainly worse pro days than what Drake May and Jaden Daniels did this week. I've seen better, but I've certainly seen worse. But that was where he was at, and I think he's now on McCarthy and Penix. I think a lot of people now are on Penix, which welcome to the bandwagon. But I do wonder.
I don't know how they jumped off after what he did against Texas in front of everybody.
I do wonder if so everybody's like, I know a lot of people watched because they streamed it. A lot of people watched Drake May's pro day on Thursday. And a lot of people watched Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
Do they like Penix because they think he's really good, or is he the only one they haven't seen miss throws? So that's why they're comfortable with him.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is it?
I think it's because he hadn't done anything wrong. It's kind of like the whole, a lot of guys, the longer you go without seeing them, out of sight, out of mind, automatically moves you up.
Right. Exactly.
We didn't see him do anything in the last 6 months, so he's got to be better than the guy we just saw miss a throw yesterday. It's next thing you know, Spencer Rattler's going to be creeping up into the top 15 because we haven't seen him yet.
He is. I don't know about top 15, but I'm starting to get asked about him as a second round pick.
Yeah.
And
out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Although, except the opposite happened for Drake May. His season wrapped up in December. He didn't play in the bowl game, no playoff.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels had at UNC ended their season a week early. So Jaden Daniels an extra game there. Obviously, we saw Michael Penix in the playoff. Think about if Michael Penix very well could have had the game he had against Texas.
And stopped.
And lost. No, he could have lost, and then we wouldn't have seen him against Washington, which I think is a valuable game as well. He'd be getting all the hype J.J. McCarthy's getting right now, I think.
Yeah, if Michael hit the nail on the head, if Michael Penix would have did what he did against Texas, but lost in the shootout, they'd be arguing should they take him or Caleb Williams at number one.
Yep. The
way he finished the season, the way he played against Texas in front of everybody, people would be going crazy. You got to take this kid number one. If you're crazy if Chicago didn't take him number one, that would have been all the conversation. But we saw him lose the national championship game, and now all of a sudden, well, maybe he's a first-round pick.
And look, I think there's value in the national championship game, too. I mean, that Michigan defense is full of NFL players. That defense is why they won a national championship.
And they didn't have their running back. He got hurt the week before.
Right. So you factor everything in. You don't throw the Texas game out because of the national championship. You don't throw the national championship game out because of Texas. You look at the big picture, which I think people have to be reminded of. But that all being said, we're sitting here now. We're less than a month away, sir. It certainly still feels like we got a while. We've still got, 1, 2, 3 more Thursdays and then the fourth Thursday will be draft day. So we've got a ways to go here, but it's also getting closer. Where are you sitting on the third overall pick? Where are you sitting on which quarterback you want?
I want Daniels.
Yep.
For a long time, I was thinking he was going to go number 2 to Washington. I started feeling that way the last couple weeks, like it was kind of a done deal. And the commander staff, they were there at that pro day. I mean, all I can go by is their body language. They were oohing and on and shaking their heads too, watching Drake May. So I would not be surprised if they snatched him at 2 either way. But I want Daniels, but I'd be cool. I'd be real cool if it was Drake May or Michael Penix. I just don't want them to move out of that spot. You got to take one of these guys and not wait around. But I'd be cool if it was Penix or May, but I want Jaden Daniels.
I still want Drake May because I think he's better for what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I would be perfectly happy with Jaden Daniels. Don't get me wrong. I think
Yeah.
either one is a win. We've talked about this. By the narrowest of margins, I would take Drake May, but I'm with you. I don't think there's any room to trade down because I think Penix is going to go up there, and for whatever reason, J.J. McCarthy is going to go up there too.
Mm-hmm.
But I just look at some of those throws. I think there's the Drake May's ceiling, his floor versus ceiling has a lot to do with his footwork.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one thing Alex Van Pelt has talked a ton about, and you've seen it in the guys he's worked with, it's footwork. Footwork. That's what he does. So if you're telling me they have essentially, I know they have a separate quarterbacks coach in T.C. McCartney, but essentially a quarterbacks coach in Alex Van Pelt who specializes in footwork, and you have a guy throwing the ball, like you said, Saron, the way he was throwing it, and his biggest issue is footwork, doesn't that make a ton of sense?
Yeah,
to put those two guys together. But I do also now feel like you said, I've been locked in on Jaden Daniels going second. Basically, when Washington hired Cliff Kingsbury as their offense coordinator, that for me was, okay, yep, Jaden Daniel. I already thought Jaden Daniels might go second, but that was when I was like, yep, that's the pick. He is Cliff Kingsbury's kind of quarterback. He plays a lot like a taller Kyler Murray, who obviously Cliff Kingsbury had success with in Arizona. Now I look at it and I'm like you said, that maybe Drake May's pro day, maybe people are putting too much stock into it. But I would understand why they're putting too much stock in it, and I could see it happen, right? Does Washington go to that pro day and come away and say, oh, the way he was throwing the ball, right? There was a picture, Evan Lazar tweeted this out, where it's Dan Quinn, who's the coach of the Commanders, right? Gerard Mayo and Mac Brown, who is Drake May's college quarterbacks coach. And it's like, one of these guys is going to draft him. The one other thing I want to bring up here, and Ryan, if we have the clip. So I do wonder, again, if Drake May goes second now, but did Brian Kelly, the LSU head coach, let something slip about Jaden Daniels? See if you can catch this here. See if you notice something.
Okay.
He is going to be so committed to taking care of himself that you don't have to worry about size or he doesn't weigh enough. Lamar's done a pretty good job with his size. I think Mahomes, I wouldn't consider him a giant because he's going to get the ball out to the playmakers and make plays for Washington.
Oh,
whoa.
What was that?
For Washington.
Whoa.
For who?
For Washington.
Huh.
Whoa. Wait.
Did Brian Kelly just let something slip? So that
For Washington.
I was locked in on Drake May to Drake May going second and flipping that back. But now I will bring this back. Remember last year at CJ Stroud's pro day? I forget who it was. It was the Panthers GM or coach or somebody went up to CJ Stroud and they were talking about how Stroud likes to play basketball. And he said, yeah, when you get to Charlotte, we'll find you a court. And everybody was like, oh, when you get to Charlotte. They had the same reaction we just did. Oh, what was that? So take that with a grain of salt. But
he should be in Charlotte playing basketball.
He should be, right. Well, they wish he was. Here's my point. Brian Kelly might just be hyping up his guy. He knows Caleb Williams going first overall. He may be hyping up his guy to go second. That may be all that is. I'm not going to lock that in. But I feel coming out, and this might be my biggest change from Pro Day week. Instead of how I view any of the prospects, I think my biggest change is just second overall pick is more open than maybe I thought it was. I thought that was a lock to be Jaden Daniels.
Same here. Yeah.
I'm not saying now it's a lock to be Drake May. I really don't know. I'm back to it's a coin flip at the second overall pick.
Yeah, and I'm in complete agreement with you. I was staring at Kingsbury. I was staring at Dan Quinn, who was literally shoulder to shoulder with Gerard Mayo the entire throwing session.
Interesting.
They were standing right next to each other, right behind Drake May. And then Elliott Wolf took 2 steps forward. Then Alex Van Pelt took 2 steps forward. They were peeking at. They were getting a close look. And some of the throws they were making, you saw Dan Quinn look at Mayo Like, dude, like, did you see? Like, they were enjoying what they were watching. Both of them were grinning, looking. And then, soon as the last throw was over, they did a little, little interview, or whatever. And the entire commanding staff just ran out the building. Maybe they were going to get ready to watch the stuff with Penix, whatever it was, was stream it, whatever. But they were all locked in, throw by throw. And I'm sitting there like, I don't think Daniels is a lock it too. I think they enjoyed what they saw. I mean, I could be completely wrong. It's my first pro day. I don't know how they normally react, but they looked like they were having a good time watching this kid. Or maybe their mindset was, we're in a good space. We're cool. Where we stand. We're going to walk out of this with a good quarterback. And maybe that was the whole mindset. But they were locked in watching Drake May throw that football.
617-779-0985. You want to weigh in on the quarterback discussion, you can give us a call. But it was more than just the quarterbacks. There's some top receivers had their pro days this week as well, including you saw a guy that a lot of people have talked about in regards to the Patriots. So let's go put the quarterbacks to a side for a second. Some other positions, big pro days this week. We'll cover that next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
For Washington.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your station for the best football coverage. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
All right, a lot of people want to talk quarterbacks, so before we get to some of the receiver pro days, Cerrone, let's go to the phones. And we start off, JP in North Providence has a question for you. JP.
Boston Battles, happy Easter, you guys.
Happy Easter.
Cerrone, you were there. Now, every day we're changing what we want to do. This is going to be the most confusing, interesting draft. I'm old school. I like a John Hanna stud left tackle. So first I wanted left tackle. Now that you've seen Drake May, does he have that Zolak arm strength that he could zip the ball in? Because our receivers cannot get separation. Can he do that from his arm strength? And if we don't tackle, sounds like he's strong, he's big. Can he withstand punishment and throw on the move, or is he got to stay in the pocket to zip it in? What did you see?
All right, what do you think,
Cerrone?
Cerrone?
Thanks for the call, man. Arm strength is not a weakness of Drake May. That is not a weakness at all. He is a big kid. He's a very large kid. I mean, I'm saying he has Josh Allen's arm, but I would say if you're like a quarterback build, I would put him more along the lines of a Josh Allen than I would like a Joe Burrow. He can move. I want to say the kid had like 9 rushing touchdowns or something like that this season. But he can move, and he has a cannon for an arm. He can make all the throws. I'm not worried about that. And I think he's a physical kid. It looks like he can take a beating. I mean, you never know. There's guys that played a whole NFL career without taking a shot, and then there's one guy, somebody just rolls up on his leg. You just never know how it's going to happen with these guys, how injuries are going to play out. Guys, Murray got hurt and no one touched him when he played against the Patriots a couple years ago. You just never know. So, with that being said, yes, he does have the arm strength and has the arm talent. I don't think that's a weakness of his at all. Not even close.
And your point, you never know how guys are going to get hurt, but like he's not somebody you're worried about the common hits building up and becoming an issue.
Yeah,
like he's going to be able to absorb hits.
I think he's the biggest of the top quarterbacks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, by
5.
like a good amount. It's a small – because Caleb Williams, like 6'1", 215.
Mm-hmm.
Jane Daniels, 6'3", 2 – what did he come in at? 210, which is a good size for him. Nobody's going to say size of strength. It's a good size for him. Michael Penix is 6'2", I think 215, 220. Bo Nix,
Drake May's
6'1", like 210. And then, Drake May's 6'4", 225, 230.
Yeah.
He's
a big kid.
He's a big dude. He's got the size down.
I'm pretty sure it was his brother. Was he power forward for UConn? I mean, for UNC?
He was in the front court. I don't remember what his position was.
His brother's a big dude. His father, I believe, was a quarterback there. So he comes from a pretty large physical stock.
Yeah.
So
they were talking about it on the Pro Day broadcast that I don't know if they were saying he considered or somebody wanted him to playing 2 sports at UNC and playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, he's a big athletic kid.
All right, let's go to Jason on the Cape with another quarterback comment. Jason.
Hey, happy Easter, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Happy Easter, man.
Yeah, I absolutely think Drake May is going to be a bust. I also think Jaden Daniels is going to be a bust. I think that McCarthy has the tools to make it in the NFL. And I think I take McCarthy. I take McCarthy at 3 and just let it play out.
What tools?
What tools?
Yeah.
McCarthy?
Yeah. What tool? You said you think he has the tools to play in the NFL.
McCarthy's got a fastball. He throws a missile. He's a proven winner. He's tough. He can run well. And in the NFL today's a quarterback league. They protect the quarterback, and that guy has to have the ability to get out of the pocket and run, and he can. And he has to be able to throw the ball down the field, and McCarthy can. Now, has he been utilized completely at Michigan? Absolutely not, because Harbaugh wanted to win national titles, and that was play good defense and run the ball. But the kid has all the tools, is what I'm saying. He can throw, he's tough, he's big, he can run. And I look at Drake May as a 60% quarterback at North Carolina in a crappy league. And then I look at
so Jason,
Daniels
what I would say, and thanks for the call. you want a big quarterback who can run around. You just described Joe Milton as much as you described J.J. McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole winner thing, I'm sorry. Did we not learn our lesson with Jimmy Garoppolo? Did we not? Like, it's good to win. It's definitely good to win, but how much success did Josh Allen have in college in that regard? How much success did Lamar Jackson have in college?
In the same ACC as Drake May.
Right. Meanwhile, how much success did Mac Jones have in college in that regard? How much success did Justin Fields have in college in that regard?
Right.
If Harbaugh wanted to win national titles,
Bryce Young,
and he felt the quarterback throwing the ball was the way to get there, he would have thrown the ball. I'm not saying anything that Jason said is necessarily incorrect in its own right, but you want a big quarterback who can run around and throw the ball far. That's half the quarterbacks in this draft. That's Joe Milton. That's Drake May. It is J.J. McCarthy as well. But you have a guy with more experience in Drake May, who you've seen more of, who is bigger, who has flashed more arm talent. J.J. McCarthy, of the top 6 quarterbacks, is the only guy with under 350 pass attempts in each of the last 2 seasons. For comparison, Michael Penix threw the ball over 500 times in both of those seasons.
Yeah. They asked these other guys to lead them, carry them.
Right.
They were the reason they won these games. There was a stretch of the season where when Harbaugh was suspended, well, they literally said, hey, man, don't throw the ball at all.
Right. And that's why I think people like J.J. McCarthy so much, because there's not a ton of negative on tape. There's not a ton of positive either.
Yeah.
But there's not a ton of negative.
Look, I've a few guys I've talked to, before have mentioned the fact that I guess Drake May had an opportunity. He had an opportunity to move on out over to Ohio State after his first year. He said no, he stayed. If Drake May had played at Ohio State with Marvin Harrison Jr., we'd be saying the same thing. He's a winner. He's got this, because we'd see him every week on national TV. We would have seen him against Michigan. We would have seen him probably in the Final Four. There would have been way more on him. If Michael Penix, if Jaden Daniels, all these guys were playing at Michigan or Ohio State or Alabama, the winning would have been easy.
Right.
If they would have played with that offensive line, with that run game, with that defense, with those receivers, it would have been lights out for half these guys in this draft. Whereas on the flip side, if J.J. McCarthy was playing at UNC, if he was playing at some of these other schools, he wouldn't look like the guy you see now. He'd be a guy with grass stains all over his uniform and, some turnovers here and there, because he'd be asked to do a lot more. And that's why I wouldn't pick him over any of these other guys in the top. I don't think I'd take him over Bo Nix, but that's just me.
For the Patriots, I would, just because I think Bo Nix is no ceiling. He's all floor, and they just did that with Mac Jones. Let's, speaking of big quarterbacks that can run around, Dan in Pawtucket, what's up?
How you doing?
Hey.
Hey, Alex. Nice to talk to you, and so nice to talk to you. I was reading about Joe Milton's pro day, and he had the scouts in attendance there, oohing and ahhing at all his 80-yard bombs. He has a hell of an arm. He's a good athlete. Why wouldn't he be considered for a late round flyer for the Patriots? Patriots could draft 2 quarterbacks. So the main question I have is, what's the difference between him and Drake May, in terms of arm strength and slowing down the field? Because Drake, you could just substitute Drake Mays. Joe Milton's pro day for Drake Mays, but Drake Mays getting all this heavy press.
So
Say the line, Bart.
You need somebody to throw it 5 yards. Joe Milton will throw it 80. That was a heck of a throw. That was into the wind, too.
It was. But if you watch it, it takes him 15 minutes to throw it.
So here's the big difference. And there's little differences within this, like the mechanics. And I've also seen this with Anthony Richardson. People say Joe Milton to Anthony Richardson, similar makeup. Mm-hmm. Joe Milton is going to be a 25-year-old rookie.
Yeah.
He's played a lot of ball. Mm-hmm. And within all those years he spent in college, he had a 6-year college career. He's played in 39 games. Joe Milton's going to be a 24-year-old rookie, not 25, 24, but still. There hasn't been a ton of growth. 2023 Joe Milton looked a lot like 2019 Joe Milton. And when you have a guy that 5 years in is still making the same mistakes and is now older and is done with his physical development, it's harder to project a ceiling because at a certain point, a guy is who he is. Drake May, on the other hand, is 21 years old. It's going to be 22-year-old rookie. There's more room for growth in his game. You saw, even though the numbers were down, you saw growth in his approach this year. That's the big difference. Drake May is ascending. Drake May is clearly, they're in the same, you could argue, and I think Drake May was a little bit better in college than Joe Milton, but you could argue they're in a similar spot right now as NFL prospects. The difference is Drake May has a ton ahead of him, and there's evidence he's getting better. Joe Milton is kind of just who he is at this point.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference.
And if you want to line up, yes, he can throw it 80 yards downfield into the wind with no problem. That's a cannon arm.
How often are you doing that?
Yeah.
Right.
Then you watch him play games, and it's like, dang, he missed that guy on the 10-yard comeback. Yeah, why does a guy with this kind of arm strength struggle to throw for 3,000 yards in a season at Tennessee? Whereas the guy that just left Tennessee, I can't think of his name, he's playing in Detroit, and I hurt his knee. I think that kid had 5,000 yards or something like that. Yeah. Yes, he was lighting it up for the same team. There's a reason this kid isn't in Michigan anymore. Yes, he keeps throwing these deep, crazy rockets, look like punts. But can he make the right reads? Can he make the short passes, like you said? Can you take something off that 5-yard screen pass, please? You don't got to throw it 80 yards and the guy standing right next to you. It's all the other little things that led to him not having a successful college career. Whereas Drake May, you've seen when he maxed out, when he was playing his best ball, he was lighting it up. And same thing, statistically, Jaden Daniels and Penix, I mean, it's not even close, but he has these outside of these 80-yard bombs. It's kind of like the Michael Bishop thing. I know you're a lot younger than I am, but Michael Bishop shows up at a preseason game for the Patriots. He's running around. He throws it 70 yards downfield. He should be the starting quarterback. It's like, yeah, but he just missed the 5 slants that were before that. But, I mean, it is what it is.
This is why, and I think this is a good point to close it on, at least with the quarterbacks. I know I said we were going to get away from quarterbacks. We went back in. You don't – the pro day's all well and good. This is why the film is king. What these guys did September to December, some cases January, that's what you're looking at. That's what you're evaluating. This is just about confirming priors. Somebody tweeted the Joe Milton throw. Somebody said, that's the kind of throw that'll make a GM forget about 6 years of game tape and lose his job. Which, yeah, that's kind of – you see that, and it's great. Go back and see what he did in games. You see what Drake May did. Go back and see what he did in games. Jaden Daniels, what did he do in games? That's the important – it's all in the context of that. All right, one more call real quick here. Jeff in Rhode Island. Jeff, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys, and happy Easter. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Hey, first off, I got to compliment Cerrone. The week that you and Leroy filled in for Felger and Maz during the holidays, that was an awesome week of talk radio here in the Boston area. That Friday show you did on the youth sports programs in and around Boston, it was interesting. It was relevant to the folks listening, so I got to say hats off. That was a great week of fill-in. So thank you very much for that. On the Brian Kelly comments, I don't know if you guys seen it. He was actually responding to a specific question about how Jaden Daniels would fill in for the would play for the Commanders and how he would fit there. So I'm not sure if it's fair to take too much out of that sound clip because the context is specific to answering about the Commanders. I don't know if you'd seen that.
Yeah,
but hey, and I'm hoping for a great draft for the Patriots. Nothing weird. None of those. Hey, why did that guy pick like 28 spots above where we thought he was going to go? Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for calling. I just real quick on the Kelly comments because we're up against it. I said it when we talked about that. Like you take it all with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches get asked about players for their team specifically. Mm-hmm. Most of the time they go, yeah, wherever he goes, he'll be good. Yeah. So maybe that was just right. Brian Kelly being a little different, but it's important context, but it's also that question rarely gets answered like that. I do want to get to Tez Walker. I want to get to some other news from this week as well. So we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Alex Barth and Cerrone battle on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Back here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, because we got all those calls. I appreciate the calls, by the way, 617-779-0985. I do want your takes thrown on what you saw from Tez Walker at the UNC Pro Day. Deep ball receiver, a lot of people of the Patriots taking maybe on day 2. What'd you think?
Very smooth, man. Very smooth. I got there when I first got there. He was running some cone drills and stuff like that. Very smooth. He kind of just glides, man. He's very fast. I think he ran like a 4.3 at the combine, 4.35 or something like that. And that was on full display the way he was streaking down the sidelines. And he was extremely fast. He's very, very thin, but a lot of the receivers now are. But I mean, he was very thin. Very smooth, getting downfield quickly. I mean, Patriot fans would love him. I mean, he did have a tough Senior Bowl. Struggled a little bit in the Senior Bowl. He had a lot going on in college, missed a ton of games. He still ended up with 7 touchdowns on a shortened season. But he's an explosive guy. And if you're looking for a downfield threat, yeah, he's one of those guys. That, with a lot of these guys, Southern guys, you just worry, can he make that catch in the snow and when it's icy, when it's raining? I don't know. But as far as another quick, explosive type guy to line up out there with Pop Douglas, I wouldn't be mad if they ended up with him in the second or maybe third round.
Well, he was at Kent State for 2 years before he transferred, so might have had some experience in that, inclement weather. Yeah, he's, especially if you get Drake May, I mean, pairing the two, I think would be good.
Yeah.
If they do wait until 68, or maybe they trade down from 34, I think he's a good field stretching receiver, and you put him out there. He gives you some vertical speed. Pop Douglas gives you some horizontal speed. Kendrick Bourne at the Z. Like, it's not ideal, but it gets you to next year if you want to invest, in a tackle at 34, something like that. Now, it was interesting. The Patriots did also meet with at LSU's Pro Day Malik Neighbors, who is going to be a top 6 pick. But
I thought he's out of their range.
Yeah, well, unless they trade down.
Yeah, true.
But kind of a, sometimes in the draft we tier these players where, like, I remember last year we had Zay Flowers right at the top, and then Tank Dell was we called him day 2 Zay. And then Pop Douglas was day 3 Zay Flowers. So it's interesting that Tez Walker in some ways is kind of the day 2, same skill set, but just not as complete. He's kind of a day 2 version of Malik Neighbors. So it does seem like the Patriots are doing some due diligence on that vertical field stretching wide receiver. They're reportedly meeting with Javon Baker from UCF, who wins differently, but is another downfield guy. So that does seem to be a focus of theirs.
Where are you on Brian Thomas Jr.?
Oh, I really like Brian Thomas Jr. He's more that traditional outside X. Like he's going to win underneath as well as being a field stretcher. I think Neighbors is more of a big play hitter, and that's why he's ranked higher. I don't think the gap between him and Thomas is massive.
Okay.
There's a gap.
That's the way I feel as well.
But I don't think – and then I would say the gap between Brian Thomas and A.D. Mitchell I don't think is that massive. And I really like – that's what kind of wide receiver I want to see the Patriots get is Brian Thomas, A.D. Mitchell, that good size, good athleticism, well-rounded, can win at all 3 levels, X receiver. Malik Neighbors – again, it sounds weird that I'm saying those guys are better, but Neighbors is going to go higher. Neighbors is just so explosive.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that he's not. Brian Thomas and A.D. Mitchell are the kind of guys that might catch 6-7 passes in a game. They're going to be like 6-7 catches, 80 to 90 yards, and a touchdown. Malik Neighbors is never going to be there, but he's the guy that's like 4 catches, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns.
125 yards on 3 catches.
Right, which is the guy the league values more. But for the Patriots, especially with a young quarterback, I think that reliable kind of player, assuming they draft a quarterback, if they can somehow trade back into the first round and get a Brian Thomas, get an A.D. Mitchell, that's the kind of move I'd really love to see them make.
Yeah, as I was thinking about Brian Thomas, I'm thinking he might be able to slide to them in the second round because I think a lot of attention's going to everybody else at LSU, and I think he's kind of going unnoticed. And the kid had a spectacular season, and another 4.3 guy, long arms, super athletic guy, and I think he can slide to them. And I was wondering, him, Walker, and there's a bunch of receivers out there, but I would love to see Brian Thomas end up as a Patriot in the second round. I think in the whole thing, like you said, I would rather than pair up. If you get Daniels, I would like to see them go get Brian Thomas.
Yep.
If you get Drake May, I'd like to see them get Walker. I think it would make the transition easier for both guys if they're playing together in the system. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, the Bama guys down at Miami, whatever. Just try and find a way to combine these guys, Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. It's kind of a buddy to have a roommate or somebody to make the transition easier and a go-to guy for one of those guys. So I would love to see a pairing in the draft.
Well, I'll give you one more, and this is one people kind of sleep on because they didn't play together this year. I don't know how familiar you are with Ricky Pearsall from Florida, who I really like him. He plays the wide receiver position super angry, and I mean that in a good way. Everything is nuance. Everything is purpose. He was at Arizona State with Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
So that's another one I look at. If they don't want to, trade back up to get Brian Thomas, Jaden Daniels and Ricky Pearsall's talked a little bit about it. He didn't play a ton, but he said, he had a good relationship with Daniels and all that. That's even though they're going to be LSU and Florida when they come out, they play together at Arizona State. So one to keep an eye on.
Real quick, I'm sorry to jump back to the quarterback. I couldn't think of the guy when you kept mentioning Joe Milton and the call mentioned Joe Milton. I couldn't think of the comp. It was the kid that came a couple years ago. It was Malik Willis, Tennessee.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
at the pro day and combine, throwing 80 yards downfield. And if you find the videos of the comments, best quarterback in the draft by far, the way he's doing this in the combine. Titans fans going crazy, and he was replaced immediately. It's the same thing as Joe Milton. Just because you throw it 80 yards and it takes you 15 minutes to do it doesn't mean you're going to be, a superstar NFL quarterback. Sorry to jump back into the quarterback. So I couldn't think of his name.
So like I said at the top of the show, busy week. We're going to work our way backwards. That's the pro days, but the week started. We heard from the head coach and the owner of the New England Patriots, Gerard Mayo. Robert Kraft spoke at the NFL League meetings. We'll touch on that. Just the headlines here, 90 seconds, no commercials. We're back with Gerard Mayo's comments here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
WBCFM, one block from the Town Fair Tire Studios, the home of the Patriots, the Celts, the Revs, and the Bruins. Boston's home for sports is 98.5, the Sports Hub. Beasley Media Station. Sports Hub headlines.
The Boston Celtics got back in the win column yesterday with a 104-92 win over the Pelicans in New Orleans. Jason Tatum, a team-high 23 points, and Kristaps Porzingis a double-double with 19 points and 10 rebounds. Bruins got up early on the Commanders, went to a shootout, and then won it. 3-2 victory for the Bees down in Washington. Johnny Beecher and Hampus Lindholm scored the in-game goals, not shootout goals, for the Bruins. Red Sox also went long last night. They played 10 innings out in Seattle. They scored twice in the top of the 10th, but then gave up 3 runs in the bottom half in a 4-3 loss. They'll get back at it today, wrapping up their season opening series against the Mariners in Seattle. First pitch set for 4:10. And plenty of March Madness action still going. A couple of Elite 8 games yesterday. It was UConn all over Illinois 77-52. And Alabama knocking off Clemson 89-82 to decide the first 2 Final Four spots. The other 2 will be decided today. Purdue takes on Tennessee at 2:20, and then Duke takes on NC State at 5:05. On the women's side, Caitlin Clark and Iowa are moving on. The Hawkeyes knocked off Colorado 89-68 yesterday. You had LSU knock off UCLA 78-69. UConn gets by Duke 53-45. A couple more games today in the women's Elite 8. South Carolina takes on Oregon State, and Texas takes on North Carolina State. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by the Freedom Boat Club. Don't buy a boat, become a Freedom Boat Club member and have unlimited usage of hundreds of boats in 21 prime locations from the North Shore to Provincetown. Visit freedomboatclub.com. I'm Alex Barth on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 10 o'clock.
This is Kristaps Porzingis.
Left-hand dribble, lobs it. Porzingis catches with one hand and throws it down.
You're listening to the home of Boston Celtics basketball. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
He begins the approach with a run-up and a swing right leg.
Every football game starts with a kickoff. This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your home for Patriots football. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
When you're at 3 overall and it's a draft like it is this year, you could have an opportunity to, instead of having a guy with a high ceiling who might need work, even though he's really good, you could move down hit two other spots in the first round, wide receiver, left tackle.
That's right. That 100%. You know, I know everyone likes to think they have the special formula to picking players, but honestly, the guaranteed way to win is to accumulate more picks. And so if we don't feel convicted at number 3, to your point, like, we are willing to do that as well.
3, that's a magic number.
Second hour of Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle, Ryan Beaton behind the glass with you here. Gerard Mayo, it was a long conversation. It was like 25 minutes. He had at the league meetings with Patriots media this week. Robert Kraft spoke as well, so we're going to kind of break these up because there's a lot to get to from both. We'll start. We're just going to go chronologically. Gerard Mayo spoke on Monday. Kraft spoke on Tuesday. So Gerard Mayo, I think we start there. I think there's a couple points I want to get to. I know you have some stuff you want to get to, but Gerard Mayo, it felt like, so here's how I'd sum up the Gerard Mayo media experience so far. Bill Belichick would say nothing. So we knew nothing, right? We had to guess what they would do. There was no indication as to what they might do. None of the options were on the table. With Gerard Mayo, every option's on the table. So we also know nothing. Because he says, he raves about Drake May, which normally you'd look at and be, oh, wow, look at the head coach going on about Drake May. That's the guy. Mm-hmm. But then he also says, you heard it there, the best thing to do is trade down and get more picks. So it's funny. He says a lot more words, talks a lot more.
He's not giving you nothing.
And he still doesn't give you anything. So I don't know if it's on purpose. I don't know if it's just he's kind of nervous because it's early on dealing with the media side of being a head coach. And he got into that a little bit. He was asked about the burn some cash quote. And he even said, like, look, I'm a first-year head coach. He kind of clarified it. He kind of couched it. But the thing about trading down was interesting because it felt like there was some conviction behind that. Look, when he was asked about Drake May, he was very complimentary. Mm-hmm. When he was asked about Jaden Daniels, he just said, I was on a Zoom with him. And then he said there's a bunch of quarterbacks in the draft. So maybe that's an answer that if it's not Drake May, they're going to move down. But it does certainly sound like everything is on the table. Everything is being considered, which it should be. They should not be pigeonholing themselves this early in the process.
No, not at all. But I think, Kraft says he wants to stay out. I mean, I know we're going to get to him in a minute, but the whole situation, we could trade out, we could do this. And you touched on it. We are just so used to Bill Belichick that anything other than what he gave the media is like, what is this dude doing? I see people say, oh, he's tipping his hand. It's like he's got nothing to hide. We're not playing poker here. It's not like it's secret. He's either going to trade the pick or he's going to pick a quarterback. He's saying too much, but like you said, he's saying a lot. He's speaking a lot. He's smiling. He's talking for 25 minutes, and you're left coming out of it not knowing anything more than you did before he opened his mouth. And like you said, is it intentional? Is that what he's trying to do? Or is it just him just talking? But I think his legacy isn't going to be built on how he talks to the media. It's not going to be built on how friendly he is or if he tips his hand. It's all going to be all based on September on what he does on the football field if they're winning games. If the players are buying in, he can get up there and say anything he wants, and we'll be cool with it. But, I don't think he's kind of giving away what they want to do. I don't think they have anything locked in already. And like you said, they shouldn't be at this point because somebody could come the last minute and absolutely blow their minds and give them something where they don't have to move back as far as 11. Just move a couple picks and you still get your quarterback. We just don't know what's all on the table right now. But, I think I'm leaning more toward I don't mind him just speaking a lot, but I don't think he's giving away too many the internal secrets and stuff like that either.
I don't mind it either, outside of the fact I have to transcribe more, which is like the least favorite part of my job.
You guys got to do a lot of work with that.
Right.
That's
but I don't mind it either. It's different. It's different, yes. Certainly. But different doesn't necessarily mean bad. It doesn't necessarily mean good. It's just different. The only thing I think he said definitively, and he didn't actually say it in this interview, he said it to Mike Reese separately, was that quarterback's a priority, that's a definitive statement.
Yes, it is.
But I feel like we kind of knew that.
Yeah, it's not a secret.
The only thing that does is the people still clinging to Bailey Zappi maybe coming in and being the savior. Doesn't sound like, I'm not going to say they don't think that can happen, but they're not counting on that. That's not plan A. And I don't think that means Jacoby Brissett's plan A either, but that was really the only definitive thing I think we got from him this week.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's something that we all know and we all should expect. That quarterback is a priority. Everybody in the building has pretty much come out and publicly said we need to get a quarterback. We got to find a way to get a quarterback. And like you said, they're not going into the season saying Jacoby Brissett is the future or Bailey Zappi is the future. They're letting everybody know they need a quarterback. It's just all about, do they get their guy or do they get a bunch of picks and their guy? That's all they're really trying to decide right now. But they're going to come out of this with a guy they feel is their future quarterback.
I also think he hit on something very interesting. He was asked about Mac Jones and kind of what he learned from Mac Jones' tenure. And I'll read the quote here. He's kind of in the middle of it. He talks about, building on Mac Jones came in, had success. There was a bridge year, blah, 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 blah. One thing I did learn, this is Mayo now, one thing I did learn about that process was as you continue to develop a quarterback, it's not only the players you put around him, but also the coaches that you put around this guy. And not only the coaches, but it can go all the way to the ops team and things like that to support a guy who plays the most important position in sports. Yes. Thank you. Massive. Massive that somebody in the building recognizes that.
He gets it.
And because I've been saying this, I was talking to some people last night and they were asking me about, do you really feel great about any of the quarterbacks? And it's like, I like them as prospects, but what people need to remember is I feel like we're getting so caught up with, and as you said earlier, Cerrone, we're so dug into it. I can't believe there's 3 more weeks of this thing. It feels like we've been going over and over and over, and we're so locked in on just the pick. Drafting the quarterback is not the end of the process. It's actually the beginning.
Yes.
Because once you draft the guy, that's only half the battle. You don't have to develop him and get that whole part right. Yep. So to hear Gerard Mayo say that, because the thing is, let's look ahead. We can be a little optimistic here. I think that's okay. Yeah. Say they quarterback X, right? I said last week I was going to stop using Drake May or Jane Daniels. Quarterback X. They draft quarterback X, 3rd overall. And he is a really good rookie year. He has a C.J. Stroud type rookie year. Alex Van Pelt's going to be gone. Alex Van Pelt's going to get hired away because that's what teams do. They hire coaches that develop quarterbacks. And maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, but Alex Van Pelt's not going to be here for a long time if the quarterback's good. You got to have a succession plan in place. Who's next up? Is it T.C. McCartney? Is it Ben McAdoo? Whoever, have some sort of succession plan in place that handles continuity. That is somebody that's been in the building that this guy knows. You've got to have a plan in place. You're not going to be able to fix all 3 major needs, quarterback, tackle, receiver. Gerard Mayo talked about that this week. What is the plan to get a receiver? What is the plan to get quarterback X what A.J. Brown was for Jalen Hurts, what Tua, what Tyreek Hill was for Tua, what Stephon Diggs was for Josh Allen. And so to hear Gerard Mayo say that was refreshing because it sounds like maybe they don't know what that plan is yet because they don't know who the quarterback is yet. You kind of need to know who the quarterback is, but it's not going to be, all right, hey, we drafted this quarterback. He was good as a rookie. We're done here. Quarterback set. We're moving on. No, you're always going to have to pay attention to what's going on at the quarterback position.
And one thing that, I think came out, I don't know if it was at the owners meeting or whatever, the Patriots are taking an extra week or something like that. I don't know if you had put that out there.
No, Mayo said that. Or maybe, it was out before and then Mayo talked about it.
Yeah, they're taking an extra week he said to make sure we're all on the same page. We all
being
want to
the
be
coaches.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be on the same page. We all have the same mindset before we really get rolling. And I think that's a key thing to like what you're saying. Okay, if Van Pelt has success with this young quarterback, he moves on. The next guy up in that tree, that coaching tree that they have there, they're all on the same page. They're all with the same philosophy, the same mindset. So they can easily just flow guys in or out, and you're not caught scrambling year after year trying to make changes to your staff, whatever. But if you have everybody on the same page with the same mindset, if you lose a guy, then somebody easily slides into that next spot, and that quarterback is not wondering what's going on and why do I have a defensive coordinator calling my plays. Like, there's got to be some kind of continuity there, and I got to give the Patriots Mayo, and I got to give them credit for saying that since the day he got hired. It's all about being on the same page with their coaching staffs, and I think they're kind of living up to that right now.
So that's the highlights from Gerard Mayo. If you want more, 985thesportshub.com. We wrote up a couple things. He also talked about potential extensions for Christian Barmore and Matthew Judon. He said they might be in the market to trade for wide receiver, but he also said they like the wide receiver class in the draft. Again, it was one of those things. But that's the highlights from Gerard Mayo. Robert Kraft spoke as well on Tuesday. He had some interesting comments. We'll get to those next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the...
You know, I guess as a fan, I put my fan hat on, and I definitely would. You know, in the end, you can't win in this league consistently unless you have a first-rate quarterback and a first-rate coach. On the other hand, you're in different position, and we've never been in the third draft position since we've owned the team. And what happens, a lot of people behind are really desperate to move up, and so we're going to be open to whatever can come our way. But in the end, I'll let the team make the decision what they think is best. One way or another, I'd like us to see us get a top rate.
But that was so he had a couple notable comments. We'll start there, Cerrone. What did you make of Kraft saying, as a fan, he wants to see the team take a quarterback, but he also did, kind of like Mayo, allude to the immense value they could get if they move back.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much putting out not a warning to them, but, I want this quarterback. You move back, but you better not move back and not come out of this for the quarterback.
Well, because he says at the end there, one way or another, I'd like to see us get a top-rate young quarterback. And if I'm, my question to him would be, and I wasn't there, my question would be, do you mean this year or like in general?
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you pitch him Quinn Ewers? Can you pitch him Shedeur Sanders? Or is that more just, well, I guess he says top rate, so not like Spencer Rattler, Joe Milton, Bo Nix, but
Yeah, I think he's talking about one of these top 4 guys. And if you move back, fine. If you get more picks, fine. But you got to come out of this with that quarterback. And I think he's talking as a fan. It's what we all want. And he's talking as a guy who runs a franchise that needs a face. I need somebody. I not only a top rate guy just to win games. I need a face, man. I need somebody who I can, put my arm around as my next guy. A guy I can put on my season tickets and my fans can, I can sell some jerseys. I need a guy. And if you can get me a guy and still pick up a couple more picks and give me a left tackle, some receivers or whatever it may be, fine. But come out of this with a guy. And if it's weird because as the new head coach and new GM, whatever you want to call them, all these guys new to the staff, I'm like I talked about last week, I'd be scared of the whole patience and waiting thing. I'd be too like, just get him his quarterback and let's move on to the season. I'm not messing with anything. I don't want to lose my job just yet. Just get the quarterback and let's move on. Let's play it safe.
So that's
that's me.
That's the thing. Gerard Mayo's talked about building this sustainably and it taking time, and Elliot Wolf has talked about building it sustainably. And there's a real argument that what that means is you don't take a quarterback this year high. And I've been big on, I don't know that they will necessarily feel this way, but here's how I feel about quarterbacks when you're a quarterback needy team. It's one thing if you're the Patriots in 2018 and Tom Brady's towards the end, and maybe you invest a second or third round pick in a quarterback, right? That's one thing. But when you're a team without a quarterback, my belief is you either take them first or you take them last. I want nothing to do with middle round quarterbacks because they all have a super low hit rate. So I either want the best foundation to work from,
right?
Or let's be honest, there's been really 2 day 2 quarterbacks that have hit in the last 5 or 6 years. One of them was a second round pick. The other was the last pick in the draft. So if you're telling me those 2 guys have the same odds of hitting, I'd rather build the rest of the roster up around the quarterback. And I'll just take a guy later on. I'll go get Carter Bradley, or I'll go get Devin Leary or Jason Bean or Andrew Peasley, right? Now, I don't know that they would do that, but and maybe they go for, Bo Nix in the second round or Spencer Rattler in the third, or I don't think they'd take Joe Milton, but Joe Milton or Michael Pratt in the fourth. I do wonder, though, because it is interesting the way that Mayo and Wolf have spoken, if there is maybe some discussion about not coming out of this draft with a top quarterback, and Kraft is kind of sitting there saying, well, consider it, essentially.
I mean, it would make a long off season and a long season if they don't come out of this with a quarterback. Everything will be blamed and put back on them not getting that quarterback. I don't know if they're willing to do that. I don't know if Kraft is willing to sit up in that luxury box and slump his head like he did in Germany.
Right.
If he's willing to do that again, I think just to get us off their backs, I think they take a quarterback, if that makes sense. I mean, just to get the pressure off of them, I think they take a quarterback. Now, do they play him? I don't know. I want them to. But do they? I don't know. But I do think they still grab one.
Well, that's where it comes down to is sustainability. Sustainability has to come with patience. Mm-hmm. And so if you really want to build it that way, you're going to have to deal with another 4 or 5 win season and fans being mad and embarrassing games on the air and stuff like that. And that might not – people pointed to the Texans. They didn't take C.J. Stroud till year 2. If that's who you want to be, like there's a path there. Mm-hmm. You just have to deal with what comes with it. Other things Kraft talked about. On Calvin Ridley, I know you took a little bit of a victory lap on this one. And two laps. I mean, I'd say it's kind of what you were saying that I don't know if you specifically circled. It's his wife, right? It's not Kraft said girlfriend, but it's his wife, I think.
Yeah, it's his wife.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned that a long time ago, but I had no inside knowledge of it, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, basically Kraft just said, among other things, that his wife didn't want to live in New England. His wife wanted to live in the South because that's where she's from, and that's where business is and all that. And look, it was a little interesting of him to throw that out there. I don't know about,
that was weird.
Because I'm sure she woke up and checked her phone and what's going on. But he did seem to kind of put it on, yeah, we had a competitive offer, but sometimes the guys just don't choose you.
Yeah, and I that was my biggest thing, though, with the whole free agency in the beginning. You can have all the money in the world, but doesn't mean everybody wants it. Some people look at that stuff as blood money. Like, I'll take less. I'm not, I'm not working third shift at Amazon if I can go work at Target in the morning. It's just, you keep that extra 50 cents an hour. But, his wife is from Huntsville. His Huntsville, Alabama is a 2-hour drive from Nashville, where Titans practice facility is. She's from Alabama. He's from Florida, I believe. They played in Georgia, played in Florida. They've never left the Southeast. And if you deal with anybody who's been in the South long enough, they don't like it up this way. They don't. They really don't. It takes a lot. Now, you've seen situations where there's good quarterbacks. It's a winning situation. Hey, I'll go up there for a couple of years, get a huge contract, and then move on or whatever it is. But there's really no draw. So when all things are being equal, he's going to look at his wife, and she's like, well, we got 2 young children, 2 young daughters or whatever. My mother and them are a 2-hour drive away. She's going to pick there. He's going to go where she wants to go. The quarterback situation, I think, is very similar. I mean, we're both not big on Will Levis. The Titans only won, a game or 2 more than you did. It's not that great franchise. So it came down to they chose comfort. And I think fans have to realize a lot of players end up doing that in some situations. They're humans just like we are. They're going to choose comfort. Now, the whole tax thing and all that, I'm not knowledgeable enough on that, but I do know $25 million in Massachusetts is totally different than $25 million in Tennessee.
Yeah,
it's not even close. But he went where the wife went, and I said that might be the case. And sure enough, Kraft comes out and says that the wife didn't really want to be up there, and I get it.
What'd you make of him saying that? Do you think that's going to impact their negotiations in the future?
That's tough, man. I don't know why. I don't know why he'd say that, especially when he called her his girlfriend. I think that hurt more than anything. It's his wife.
Yeah, I was very confused by that. The other thing he said that got a lot of attention was he was asked about the Dynasty, the documentary. Said, and I'm right there with him. First 3 episodes, great. And I'm paraphrasing here. Well, he said, I love the first 3 episodes. I really liked them. Felt bad there was so much emphasis on the controversial and, let's say, challenging situations over the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. Warts and all with too many warts, basically. I wish they'd focus more on Super Bowl wins, blah, blah, blah. And then he talks about how some of the players have criticized it. Devin McCourty, Rodney Harrison, Matthew Slater. I think Julian Edelman did so this week. Wouldn't go as far as then asked about how Belichick was painted. And he basically just said, we'll induct Bill Belichick into the Patriots Hall of Fame. But a lot of people talked about, him having a hand in it, producing it, and the Kraft Productions LLC thing at the bottom. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and say he didn't have a hand in it. I actually don't think he had as much of a hand in it as some people think. But and for what it's worth, I don't think he came out looking particularly good either.
No.
If it was him producing a puff piece, it did not come across that way.
No, people came out upset at him. So, I mean,
right.
I think they would have made themselves look a lot better in that. I think it goes straight back to Apple. People who run the whole thing said, how can we figure out a way to get more eyes on this thing? And they watched it and said, nope, cut that out. No, I don't want this. No, I don't want that. And Apple put out what they wanted, and they went with the controversial side, like we mentioned. like a lot of Netflix documentaries and some of these other networks is like like 30 for 30s. They're not going to focus too much on the good. When you watch a documentary about the New York Mets in the late 80s, they're not going to show a lot of the winning. They're going to show a lot of what was going on behind the scenes, and that's what they did with them. And I'm more surprised that the Patriots players, Kraft, and others actually thought that they wouldn't focus mostly on the negative. If you watch enough of these documentaries, you see that's what they were going to do.
Well, Kraft said that, and I want to find the exact quote here. There were some really prominent people that were interviewed for hours and were never used. I want to know who that was.
Yeah, who else was more prominent than who they interviewed?
Well, remember in that one episode they opened with, who was it? Rupert Murdoch? They had like 5 minutes of Rupert Murdoch at the beginning of one of the episodes, and there's some other really random interviews in there. So I do think Kraft knocking it holds some weight in terms of, I think a lot of people are expecting this to be, before it came out, the definitive telling of the Brady Belichick era.
Yeah.
And if there was any question left whether or not that's the case, I think the owner himself knocking it kind of puts that idea to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's what I expected it to be, but it's clearly not what they expected to be, considering they sat there and did the interviews and they gave a lot of stuff that just was left off of there. But it's like, I keep bringing up the Last Dance one with the Bulls players. You got half of that team literally on a world tour right now telling their side of the story because they didn't agree with how ESPN put out their side of the story.
Well, Bill now is supposedly writing a book. We got that this week.
There you go.
But it sounds like it's just going to be a book on leadership, which, for what it's worth, I'll read. I know it's not the tell-all everybody wants, and don't get me wrong, I want the tell-all.
Yeah.
I'll read a Bill Belichick book on leadership, though. I think that would be very interesting, even if it's not what we all want. But maybe, he's going to have to use examples, right? He's going to have to use examples from his own life. So I don't think there'll be, even if it is a leadership book, I don't think there'll be nothing in there. I think there'll be a couple things.
I would love it. I mentioned this yesterday. I would love it if it's breaking down certain situations of leadership. Back when he was coaching at the Giants.
Right.
So-and-so stepped up. He took over. We didn't expect this. He carried us. He led us. This is how we did it. When he was in Cleveland, when he got to New England, different players. Like you mentioned before, the whole Rodney Harrison thing, the way he kind of just stole the whole leadership role when he showed up at training camp. And it just, all those type of examples. I think if it has a lot of football-related stuff in there like that, people would eat it up. And I'd be one of them.
So that's Gerard Mayo, Robert Kraft, both spoke this week. If you missed any of our comments on that or at the beginning of the show when we talked draft, you can find Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff wherever you get your podcasts, including 985sportshub.com. Some league news, though, from the league meetings, including league rules. We'll touch on those next, and especially around the NFL segment here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the... Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your station for the best football coverage. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Well, as is obvious to the viewers at home, we have a power outage here at the Superdome.
Who turned off the lights? Football. Isn't the season over?
That's it. There is no more football.
That stinks.
What exactly are we gonna do now?
Is this or is this not the XFL? Yes, it is. 2, do I or do I not currently have a pulse? Yes, I do. Let's play football.
Good pull, Ryan. Great pull. You could have gone with this is the XFL. No, it's Jeff Brom, right?
Yeah.
Jeff or Brian? Yeah. Jeff Brom. Do I or do I not currently have a pulse? I do. Let's play football. You got me all fired up here on a Sunday morning in March. So the NFL is adopting the new XFL kickoff rule, not the scramble that was dangerous, as fun as it was. We talked a little bit about this last week. Basically, the idea is the coverage team now lines up further down the field, 10 yards across from the return team minus the returner. They get like a 5-10 yard buffer. One returner's deep. Nobody can move until the returner has the ball. I go watch the returns in the XFL. There's games on today, or it's the UFL now, but this is a good rule. This is a good rule. It's going to look gimmicky. It's going to annoy people at first, but it's an exciting football play. And we haven't been able to say that about kickoffs for a long time. I think teams are going to get creative. I think this adds another dynamic for that kind of explosive player. Patriots did great getting Jalen Reagor back when they did. Look, it's not a coincidence. Cordero Patterson signed the day after this rule was passed. I am very excited about the kickoffs.
Yeah, and think about this. The first 5 minutes of red zone coverage is going to be fire.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Oh, the first quad box of the year?
Yes. To open the season, all the cameras flashing, or whatever, day games or whatever. But now it's not gonna be a bunch of touchbacks. It's gonna be kickoffs in every game with the chance of somebody breaking one as soon as the game starts on red zone. That's
Love
gonna
that.
be so smooth.
Love that. Again, I think
people are already mad about it, but it's like, stop going by the way it looks and think about the fact that you go from 80% touchbacks now to 80% kick returns. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion.
And look, some teams will still take touchbacks, I'm sure. Every team's going to handle this differently. In the first year, especially the first few months, we're going to see all these different teams try all these different things, and it's going to be a lot of trial and error and experimentation. And I'm sure there certain things will set in, certain things will get left behind. But is it the same as the original kickoff? No. Do I prefer this over not having a kickoff at all? Because that was probably the alternative. Yeah. It was just the offense starting at 25. Absolutely, I prefer this. Absolutely. Yes. And what I'm doing, if I'm the Patriots or any NFL team, I'm finding a guy who was a coordinator in the XFL last year, and I'm bringing him on as a consultant. What worked? What didn't work? What'd you talk about? What'd you try? I would absolutely be doing that right now if I was an NFL team.
And one thing I would like to add to that, there's going to be some team that's going to win games because their special teams are so much better than everybody else's. They're going to steal 3 or 4 wins because they got elite kick return guys back there. And there's going to be guys that become stars again. I mentioned Dante Hall and Devin Hester, some of these other guys that were elite return men. You mentioned Cordero Patterson. He's a great return man. You're going to see these guys get elevated again. And you might see some guys from the XFL that are really good at it be brought over to some teams because they're just elite return men. And I'm glad that the position is getting prioritized again. And we get that exciting play back in football.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It is going to change a little bit. I think there's going to be more now of a split between special teams with special teams. They were kind of just broken up. However, but I think you're going to see the need to tackle in space, more true defensive players on the coverage unit, the need to be able to block in space, block on the move, set up blocks. I think you're going to see more tight ends, bigger receivers, athletic tackles even on that return team up front. It's going to definitely change the way the rosters are built, but it's going to be fun. How many kickoff return touchdowns do you think we get this year, Cerrone?
Oh, man. What did we get last year?
I'm trying to find the number. I can't find it.
I think you get one every week. I think someone takes it to the house every week. Easily.
I love that. I mean, that would be fun. Those prop bets are going to be fun too. If you can figure that out before Vegas does.
I think it's going to be high. Think about before the rules change. Look at the way scoring is in football now. Teams are scoring way more points, which means there's going to be way more kick returns. And I think guys are going to have more opportunities to break them. And what you just said, I was about to ask you about, how do you think this changes how you construct your roster? Do you add more receivers? Do you add more linemen? Because you know you're going to be using them more on special teams, whereas years before. And how do you approach training camp practices? You spend way much more time now in practice on this return game.
There was 4 kickoff return touchdowns last year, by the way. Oh, thanks, Ryan. Hey, did you say that over the air or did you say it to me?
No, just to you. It was Andrew Beck, Marvin Mims, Damian Pierce, and Jalen Reagor.
All right, so
that goes way up.
Yeah, that's going way, way up, and that'll be fun. So that's the big rule change. I'm looking forward to asking Jeremy Springer, the Patriots special teams coordinator, about it. I don't know when we'll get to talk to him again, but I'm sure there'll be interesting stuff with that. There were 2 other rule changes, including this one so I was a fan of the kickoff, not a fan of this one.
And Andrews is hurt, slides inside, and is in agony right now as he gets taken down by Logan Wilson, and the training staff coming out there in a hurry.
Wilson rolled up on him when he made that tackle.
So that was an example of the hip drop tackle that became very notorious last year. It's basically where, as a defender, you grab a guy, you have him around the waist, and then you drop your body weight in order to get him to the ground rather than driving him to the ground. And it makes it easier for smaller players to tackle bigger players. It also increases the frequency of lower body injuries. Now, the NFL claimed they did this for player safety. If they wanted to do that, they could just play every game on grass. The injury rate's greater. Here's my thing with this rule. Will they enforce it? Because a couple years ago, they put in, remember that rule about like the ball carrier can't lead with his head? And everybody said that's ridiculous. It's the only way to play football. And then they just never called it.
Yeah.
If they never call this, whatever. If it's just a thing to like fine players during the week. If this is a thing they're going to enforce, I am loading up. Like I don't need any skill position player under 210 pounds. No need for it. I'm going out and getting just run through a wall, leg churning, tree trunk leg ball carriers.
Mike Allstott,
right?
3 Grunks.
Well, I would say, like, if hip drop tackles were illegal when Rob Gronkowski was playing, he might have scored 40 touchdowns in a season. Like in a league where the defense has gotten smaller and you have 220-pound linebackers, you have 180-pound safeties, 170-pound corners. How's that guy going to tackle 225-pound Ramondre Stevenson when he gets a full head of steam around the edge?
Right.
It's not going to happen.
He gets past the first line.
Derrick Henry might be. He might win MVP this year. So we'll see how much they enforce it, but it has the potential to really change the way the game is played in space because, look, you'll get him down eventually, but how many yards is Ramondre Stevenson going to gain dragging the corner before the next guy gets there to help him finish the tackle?
Right, because he can't bring it. He's just going to have to try and pull him.
Right.
You tug of war pretty much up the sidelines. And I think that sets up, my opinion, I think that sets up for more injuries because now instead of dropping Stevenson to the ground, I'm holding him up. And here comes my safety flying and trying to take his head off because he's standing straight up.
Great point. So it's going to come down to how much it's enforced, though. So we'll see on that. And then those are the 2 big rule changes. There was one more that was interesting to me, though.
They fill out the report.
So in the past, to make a player eligible to return from IR, he had to make the initial roster, that 4 p.m. on that Tuesday, right? He had to be on the roster, then you could put him on IR and return him. Now you get 2 guys. They can't be put on IR before cutdown day. It has to be on cutdown day that can then be designated to return later on. It's just more roster spots. It gets more players involved. I don't know. Again, this didn't get a lot of attention. It's not like a sexy rule. It doesn't change the way the game is played, but it's going to let teams kind of be more creative with how they put their rosters together, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool. I mean, the injury thing and all that, so you want to be able to get some extra bodies in there or whatever, but I don't see how this is a negative to the league at all.
It's not. So the big one for me, like you look at what happened with Isaiah Bolden last year. Had a very promising camp. Scary concussion late in the preseason. He goes on IR. Last year, if they'd waited until cutdown day to put him on, when they had that whole run of cornerback injuries and guys getting cut late in the year, they could have brought Isaiah Bolden back and he maybe would have gotten a chance as a rookie, which would have been nice to see. So it opens the door for something like that.
And shout out real quick to Matt Corral yesterday. Was out there throwing bombs in the, what is it, not the XFL, but the
UFL.
UFL. And who's the guy that was kicking? We kicked the 64-yard game winner?
Yeah, he's like their backup kicker, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'd be giving him a phone call if I was in New England because their kicking game here is not really too strong right now. But he was out there kicking some bombs, and I think that'd be interesting.
Jake Bates.
Jake Bates
from Arkansas. So of Michigan. No, it was some fun games yesterday. Corral was slinging it. This league's functioning as it should. Like, it's working as a minor league, which is great.
Yeah.
Corral was slinging it. You got some close games. McCarron was throwing the ball around. I enjoy these. I'm not going to, sit down and watch everyone all the way through because I do enough of that on the weekends in the fall. But, I mean, I had it on. I was doing some work. I had to move some furniture around yesterday. I had it on in the background. You know, I'm watching, third downs, things like that. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you said, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's a farm system for the NFL, and it's a good way for guys to stick around and might get a chance to get a shot. If you're kicking 64-yard game-winning field goals, somebody's going to shoot you a DM. So just kind of hang around your phone.
Maybe next week we'll do a little more. We'll do a UFL segment. We'll get into it. It might be. It's not NFL kickoff. It's just Sunday kickoff. So maybe we'll get into that next week. Sure. But that's all we have for Around the League this week. Again, the rule changes. We'll be back. We'll wrap the show up next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Do I or do I not currently have a pulse? Yes, I do.
Yes.
Let's play football.
Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
offensive and defensive line. So probably get those done, maybe do a mock draft or two. And I'll be back at 2 o'clock with Matt. We'll do more Patriots, talk some Bruins as well. As we wrap it up here, Soren, anything else from the week that stands out to you that maybe we didn't get to or touch on as much as you wanted to?
No, I mean, I just I think that a lot of there's still not enough attention, in my opinion, being put on the running backs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I think that's a thing I think we can get into in the future. I think these are some of these guys are going to be some game changers in the league and really going to help some of these young quarterbacks out. I would hate to see what it looks like if C.J. Stroud gets an elite running back in the draft and what's going to turn into that team. Same thing with Kansas City, some of these other teams. They're all just a ground game away, and I think that's something that's getting really overlooked. But I think we'll get more focus on that as we get close to the draft.
Well, I'll say this. We just talked about the hip drop tackle, right? And if you add powerful runners and they truly call that, how it can change things. I look at the draft, man, early on day 3, Isaac Guerendo from Illinois, 6 foot 221, ran a 4.33.
Yeah, pull him down from behind without.
Right. Braylon Allen, Wisconsin, 6'1", 235.
Yeah.
I would not hate them. I wouldn't take a running back in the top 100, but
no.
103, 137. If one of these bigger backs is on the board, I know everybody really likes Dylan Lobby, right? The kid from New Hampshire. He's a good player, but
yeah,
Antonio Gibson's very similar. Like, I'd like to see them, especially with Ramondre in a contract here, add one of these big physical, because there's a ton of these guys in the draft.
Guys. Yeah.
Right, big physical goal line backs, because might be more in the goal line based on the new rules.
He might be.
They might be able to punch some holes. And I don't think Zeke's going to be back for what it's worth. I know there was a report today that he may go back to the Cowboys, which would be kind of cool, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially now that Tony Pollard's not there. They only have like 4 or 5 unsigned guys left. And generally when you get to this point, those guys aren't coming back. So the list is, well, Kyle Duggar's technically not signed, but he's transition tagged. It's Ezekiel Elliott, Terez Hall, and Trey Nixon, I guess, could come back as like camp guys. And then Riley Reef, who probably should retire.
Forgot he's still around.
I mean, if we're being honest, he's 35. He couldn't get through the season last year. But that's it. Everybody else is signed somewhere. They lost Miles Bryant this week. He was one of the guys that signed later. He went to Houston. But I'm with you. Like, they have the number of running backs they need, I think, to get through camp. They have 5 running backs under contract right now. Stevenson, Gibson, Kevin Harris, JaMychal Hasty, and Keyshawn Vaughn. Hasty and Vaughn, to me, well, actually, Hasty returns kicks. So
value.
He may actually, with the new rule, play a role here. But Kevin Harris is a fine player. But he's, now entering his 3rd year. He hasn't really been able to solidify himself on the roster. Can you bring in competition for him? For that 3rd running back spot, it's going to be Kevin Harris. Maybe JaMychal Hasty makes it on special teams. Can you bring in another younger guy to compete for that 3rd spot? I do think there would be maybe more value in that than people are initially recognizing.
Yeah, and I think you got to look at this the coaching staff that's come in as well. All these guys from Cleveland, they're going to try and run the football. And I think them going out and getting some young running backs or a young running back or whatever to add a little depth to this backfield, I think would be a huge asset to them. And again, it'll help protect whatever young quarterback or whoever it is they bring in. Being able to run the football and play defense, I think, would be a big help to this new young quarterback, this new toy. So hopefully we'll get more focus on that as the weeks lead up to the draft.
Yeah, so this week, now we're in the final stage of the pre-draft process here. The pro days I think there's like one more pro day. I think it's Maryland or something has their pro day Monday or Tuesday. But for all intents and purposes, we're done with pro days. Final phase, top 30 visits. So next week we will know some players the Patriots are talking to. We will discuss those. And I mean, we're full in sprint mode till the draft. It's basically April, less than a month away. So we'll be back next week. Saron, when are you on next?
I'm on Saturday.
All right, so you can catch Saron on Saturday. I'll be on in 4 hours. In the meantime, Mark Tondero, Kendra Middleton going to keep the seat warm for me. They're coming up next year on 98.5 Sports Hub. Thanks for listening, everybody.
From the Town Fair Tire Studio, the home of the Bruins, Patriots, Revs, the Sports Hub of Easley Media Group Station. Sports Hub headlines.
The Boston Celtics got back in the win column yesterday with a 104-92 win over the Pelicans in New Orleans. Jason Tatum, a team-high 23 points, and Kristaps Porzingis a double-double with 19 points and 10 rebounds. Bruins got up early on the Commanders, went to a shootout, and then won it. 3-2 victory for the Bees down in Washington. Johnny Beecher and Hampus Lindholm scored the in-game goals, not shootout goals, for the Bruins. Red Sox also went long last night. They played 10 innings out in Seattle. They scored twice in the top of the 10th, but then gave up 3 runs in the bottom half in a 4-3 loss. They'll get back at it today, wrapping up their season opening series against the Mariners in Seattle. First pitch set for 4:10. And plenty of March Madness action still going. A couple of Elite 8 games yesterday. It was UConn all over Illinois, 77-52, and Alabama knocking off Clemson 89-82 to decide the first 2